For reasons best known to himself in a way, Rudolf Hess, the so-called Deputy Führer of the Third Reich, flew to Britain on the night of May the 10th, 1941, the same night, of course, that the last night of the Blitz was to take place. He landed in Scotland, asked to see the Duke of Hamilton, who he had met before the war at some point, and at some point also wanted to speak to Churchill. Why? Well, Rudolf Hess apparently wanted to make peace on Hitler's behalf and in the run-up to the invasion of Russia. As with anything in Rudolf Hess's life by this point, it did not make sense to anyone at all, and was probably taken with a dose of salt by Winston Churchill, who now had to was probably quite glad and chuffed that they had captured, because he comes over Hess and Hitler's deputy. Therefore, obviously, peace wasn't made. Churchill never really considered it seriously. I mean, as he said in the year before when he became Prime Minister, we're going to fight to the end, whether we win or not. Once word reached Nazi Germany, Hitler apparently went terribly right and began to shake and then erupted in a verbal equivalent of the eruption of Vesuvius in 79 AD. It was seen as one of the first of his monumental rages that would become the norm after the tide turned. Hitler ordered Hess to be shot on sight. All of his official roles and the like were to be dispensed with and given over to other people. I mean, by this point, Martin Bormann was practically the deputy leader of the Third Reich anyway, and it was seen as a great betrayal. The thing is, no one really seems to know, even now, why Hess did it. Hitler never authorised this mission. No one else in the Reich leadership seemed to know about it. If they had any ideas, they regarded Hess as slightly deranged. And the Duke of Hamilton didn't seem to remember meeting Hess, or at least think of him as favourably as Hess thought of him. Churchill thought this was a joke, more than likely. It made no difference to anything. Although it's debatable what Hess would have been like had he stayed in Germany. Probably would have been executed at the end of the war. Pieces of the Messerschmitt 110 that he used, he was actually quite a proficient pilot, remain. In this country, we got a piece of the fuselage in the Imperial War Museum where we had, I don't know if it's still there since the refurbishment. It used to be in a really prominent place, I don't remember seeing it. We do have the eagle that used to be on top of the Vice Chancellor. I'm still amazed by that. It's a weird thing to put your hand upon something that used to be in Berlin and was bombed. Hess, after his arrest, briefly and famously stayed in the Tower, London. Not the last person incarcerated. The Cray twins were incarcerated there in the early 50s for trying to get out of national service. And as I say on tour buses, by the war, even though we executed a German spy there in 1943, the castle was not a prison as such. I mean, the Victorians were thinking of knocking it down because it had served to seize the purpose. Charles II in the 1660s and 70s was probably the last monarch to make proper use of it, with the regicides and whatnot. People were kept there since Charles II up to George VI, but it wasn't the sole focus of effort, and then he got taken off elsewhere. Hess joined his mates like Ribbentrop and Goering and Speer at the Nuremberg War trials in 45-46, and was more or less shunned, or at least treated like a lunatic, it seems. The 2000 two-parter drama Nuremberg, starring Alec Baldwin, the late great Christopher Plummer, and Brian Cox, weirdly playing Herman Goering. Hess is for someone who did seem to be a few pints short of a pub. Hess has this kind of aura around him. I believe it is the crash in 42-43 of Prince George, George the Sixth brother, who was an absolute legend social. I mean, Prince Harry, used to go out on the lash, but Prince George did cocaine and all sorts of things and was apparently bisexual. And, if he had lived, there's a feasible possibility that he could have been king after his brother died, because I think the line of succession would have still gone to the brother. I don't know, but either way, forget it. But he died, sadly, I think the last member of the royal family to be killed in action. And there was a conspiracy theory that Rudolf Hess was on that plane, and why? I mean, the plane crashed in Scotland. Oh, it was meant to be some kind of secret mission to Berlin or something. There was an extra body found on the plane or something, but it's been debunked. There's a suggestion, therefore, that the Rudolf Hess after 1942-43 and was tried at Nuremberg was not therefore the Rudolf Hess, thus accounting for his sudden and rather deep-seated insanity, it seems, and indeed he pleaded insanity or some such amnesia at Nuremberg, and when they all were asked to declare themselves guilty or not guilty, Hess sort of just went, yeah, and it's like, well, that's not an answer. He was then incarcerated for life. Hess was the last of the Nazi leaders to die. By the time he died, in the late 80s, I'll call it 89 in my, he was 89, it was 1989, he was born in 1900 anyway. It was the year before the wall came down, or before the wall came down anyway, and he was the only prisoner still in Spandau prison, and still guarded by the members of the West, Britain, France and America. And even in death, Hess was debated over why did he kill himself at the age of 89 after almost 45 years of imprisonment? Why now? Somebody must have murdered him. Was it Hess that died? All this other stuff. In a nutshell, I am never sure what is the point of him flying to Britain. It only served to serve the purpose of removing him from the Third Reich. Speer seemed to think that Hess was swayed by his supernatural beliefs and all this stuff, for he could save the war effort for Germany, but who's to say, really? Needless to say, as I say, he hanged himself in Spandau. No one is any the wiser. So that's your 80th anniversary of Hess.